And I'd like to now welcome up to the podium our guest speaker for tonight. And this is one of those things that we like to give opportunities for business owners and anybody who's a part of the chamber to further their business, but also some great ways that they can improve even their own personal development as well. So please welcome to the podium from the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, Rory Wells.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Just a little bit about me. I did attend John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. I graduated with high honors in government and public administration. After that, I went into the Marine Corps. I served 4.5 years as a junior officer. And after the Marine Corps, I went to law school. Of course, this is a streamlined version, but ultimately after law school, I ended up getting picked up at the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, and I've been there somewhere around 12, 13 years. I have handled a number of cases, and I just tell you this not to impress you in any way, but I'm going to be talking a little bit about leadership, and you should know who's up here talking to you. So I do obviously have extensive experience in the community as well. During my time with the prosecutor's office, I've tried cases, I've handled hundreds of cases, both adult and juvenile. But over the last couple of years, my role has changed somewhat. Our prosecutor, Joe Coronado, came on and he picked up the mantle of the opiate epidemic and battling a lot of the drug problems that we have in the community. And I had already been speaking in the community quite extensively. If somebody called our office and requested a speaker for a school assembly, come talk to young people, an event like this, parents, etc., I would pretty much voluntarily go whenever somebody requested a speaker from our office. However, over the last couple of years, my role has kind of morphed into the community relations officer. So this has kind of become somewhat official. I do get into court, but just not as much as I used to. And now I spend a lot of time serving the community in a number of different fashions. So I sit on a number of boards, and I've attended quite a few events throughout just Ocean County as well as throughout the state. So I was excited when I pitched the topic of leadership because it's something that I enjoy and I study. And a lot of the times I do a lot of speaking, which is appropriate, on cyber issues, cyber safety, social media, the opiate crisis, and all of those things. But leadership is a little bit different, and you can have some fun with it. So I won't go too long, but hopefully I give you some things to think about before I cut you loose here, before they cut you loose here at the end of the meeting. I also want to recognize that when you talk about leadership, you really can't talk about leadership in a vacuum. So we are in, when you're talking about leadership in your families, in your business, in the community, in the state, there are a lot of things going on. So we are obviously in the midst of a drug crisis. If we weren't talking about the opiate crisis, we'd be talking about the mental health crisis. We're not talking about that one just because one really has so much more exposure. There's a lot of people with stress and tension and those things going on just in the state and in our nation. So when you're looking at things like leadership and you're trying to plan and figure out how you're going to go about and setting goals and those sorts of things, you recognize that you're doing these things not in a vacuum where there's no resistance, but there's always resistance. So I just wanted to make that point. And also, when you talk about leadership, you have to recognize that there's different types of leadership. So someone who is an entrepreneur or doing business or leading a large family or leading a small family, that type of leadership, there's general principles that will be consistent throughout, but that would be different than, for example, a colonel in the military who is usually very mission specific, accomplish the mission, and those sorts of things. And that type of leadership would be different even than somebody, say, who's a political leader. Obviously, we have folks that are public servants here, where you're really talking about and the mayor talked about the culture and the quality of life of the city and those sorts of things. Those are important. Management of resources and money and time. That's a different type of leadership. So there's some principles that are consistent, but when you talk about leadership, you have to recognize the different roles that somebody may be in. What I'm just going to pitch to you very briefly are the things that I think are consistent across the board. And the first thing that I've recognized is if you're going to be a leader, now this is a little different than a manager or an administrator. You can have a manager who is also a leader, but not always. A leader is somebody who casts a vision. They cast a big picture vision. This is what I want this to look like. This is what I want my business to look like. This is what I want the state to look like. This is what I want the family to look like. It is an overall grand picture. That's what the leader does. The leader casts the vision. What do I want my organization to look like on a grand scale in this community, in my life, in the state, or whatever the circle of influence may be? And then the leader has to communicate the vision and create buy-in. So whoever you happen to be leading, right, you can't be a leader with no followers. There's plenty of them, but you actually have to have followers to be a leader, right? So you want folks that are going to be able to buy into your vision. And not all leaders have to be great communicators. So the last time I spoke on leadership, I made the examples from the Old Testament, how Moses is considered this great leader. He led this people group. They were transient and they moved across this great area, but he really couldn't speak. And if you know the story, he professed and really kind of gave God trouble and said, I can't speak. And what did God do? God said, use who? Use your brother. Right? So he used his brother Aaron. And I use that example because you can be a good leader, you can communicate the vision, but you don't always have to be the best communicator. Right? So a Mother Teresa was an incredible leader. She didn't have a lot of resources, but she communicated her heart and her passion. But if you're going to lead, you have to not only have the vision, where do you want to go? Big picture. What do you want to do in your business, in your organization? What is this going to look like 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Then you have to communicate that vision and get people to buy in. And you can do that a number of different ways. After you communicate the vision, then you have to empower your people. You have to actually give them the tools and the training so that they can work towards the vision that you've all created. This is one of the areas in the military, it's a very, very big deal. So a lot of the officers and leaders throughout the military, particularly the Marine Corps, one strong example that you may have heard of or in passing is that most, or really all the Marine Corps officers, they won't eat until all of the troops have eaten first. They make sure everybody's fed and everybody's handled before they then go in and eat. It's just a principle that you have to take care of those who you are leading. And if you have a small group of people, and it's the same thing with your family, whether it be with your small business, whether it be with the prosecutor's office, whether it be a large corporation, you can't just cast a vision, get them all to buy in, and not give them the training and tools that they need to actually accomplish the mission. Very, very critical. And then you have to set goals. And a lot of the times, when you're talking about leadership, folks will often confuse goals with the vision. So the vision is the big picture overall. What do I want this to look like, grand scheme? And then your goals are those benchmarks that you're using to get to the vision. So what are your benchmarks for your business for this year? What are your numbers supposed to look like at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter? What do you need to accomplish to move closer to the vision? And there's lots of tools, and I get excited when I'm talking about this. I mean, I know I'm here in the role as a prosecutor, but I just love talking about business, and I study sales and marketing because as a communicator, if you can sell, there's a lot of things that I can learn from somebody who's a very good salesperson who overcomes objections, who works with people's emotions. So as an attorney, we're always trying to tell a story. So I've studied quite a bit of that, sales and marketing and those sorts of things. So I get excited about it. And I just want to say, for you all, and my message to you is, one, don't forget the overall vision. Because a lot of the times we'll get caught up in the day-to-day and the week-to-week. But you have to have the overall vision so that you know where you're going. And then the goals support the overall vision. And a lot of the times people will confuse those, and they'll think their goal is their overall vision when they're operating without an overall vision. So you really need that big picture and scenario. What do you want your organization to look like? What do you want your business to look like? What do you want your family to look like? You have to spend time thinking about it. And then you set the goals, and then you can do your analysis. So for me, I do this frequently with my family and the areas that I participate in, some of the committees that I sit on, as well as some of the groups in the community that I participate in. Because it's one way that you can always keep your focus of where you're going. So I just want to say, after you've done all that, then you have to assess. And when you're talking about leadership, in my experience, you can't just set the vision, create your benchmarks, your goals, and then keep rolling along without ever assessing. Where are we? Have we accomplished the goals? If we haven't, why not? So for me, like I said, I'm not going to drag this out. I just wanted to give you a little bit about what I thought about leadership, and I hope you can take from this that the biggest thing is you have to set the vision. You really have to have a big picture where you're going, because a lot of the times what happens is people will then be reacting to life instead of directing life. Right? So you're reacting to what life is throwing at you instead of directing, this is where I'm going, this is how I'm going to get there, and this is why I'm doing it. That's what the leaders do. And they cast that. And there's lots of folks that are okay coming in as a support role. I trust you. I believe in you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you we're going in the same direction. There's a lot of people that will fill in and support and join your team and help you. And a lot of people are craving, especially in today's climate and environment. Usually during chaotic times, one of two things will happen. Incredible leaders will rise, or the system will crack. And we're in a position. I don't want to talk outside the scope here, but I'm an optimist. And our country and our history, in our very short period of time, we have an incredible history of whenever we go through very, very difficult times, incredible leaders rise up. So I'm always an optimist, until, the day I'm no longer here, then you can say, okay, well, I guess now we can worry. But as long as I'm here, I'm not worried. So I want to encourage you that the biggest point that I want to make is you always have to have a grand vision. Where am I going? What am I doing? Because you need your focus point, and everything else comes off of that. I hope that helps. Like I said, I'm not going to punch it too long, but I enjoy talking about the topic. And once you've gotten the basics down, then you can talk about training, leadership, sales, marketing, and those sorts of things. But without the principles of the vision, empowering your people, taking care of your people, setting your goals, and assessing, everything else really is just kind of chasing your tail. Okay. So with that, I want to say thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'll turn the mic back over.
Thank you. Before you walk away, if somebody wants to reach out to you, get more information, or just discuss further, how can Well, I have a website, rorywells.com, but obviously, in terms of my role as a prosecutor, community relations officer, and those sorts of things, just call the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office. And in terms of speaking or training and those sorts of things, you make a request, and we'll see if we can fit it in, and I'll come. So the prosecutor's office is 732-929-2027. But thank you. Thank you.
All right.